I know how to act with strangers when I'm hitching a ride. But not when I'm being company. Because orphans don't go calling much, so I never had much experience. I'd have been shy no matter what, even if there wasn't no such thing as sparkiness. Dad was all set to take me to Papa Lim's right off, but Mama knew how I wasn't cleaned up. She hustled me into the house where they had a good shower, and when I came out she had a cold ham sandwich waiting for me on the table, on the plate, and the plate was sitting in a linen placemat. And there was a tall glass of milk, so cold it was sweating on the side of the glass. I mean, if an orphan kid ever dreamed of what it might be like to have a mama, that was the dream. Never mind that she didn't look like a model on the Sears catalog, but I felt clean. The sandwich tasted good, and when I was done eating, she even offered me a cookie. It felt good, I'll admit that. At the same time, I felt cheated. It was just too late. I needed it like this when I was 7, not 17. But she was trying. It wasn't all her fault. So I ate the cookie and drank off the last of the milk, and my watch said it was 9. Outside it was dusk now. Most of the kids were finally gone off to bed, and Daddy comes in and says, "Papa Lim says he isn't getting any younger." He was outside, in a big rocking chair, sitting on the grass. You wouldn't call him old, but he was bald on top, and his hair was wispy yellow and white. You wouldn't call him ugly, but he had a soft mouth and didn't like the way it twisted when he talked. I hated him from the first time I saw him. A squishy kind of guy. Not even as sparky as my dad. So he didn't get to be in charge around here just by having more of whatever it was made us different. I wondered how close kin he was to me. If he got children, if they looked like him. Mick, my dear boy. Good evening, sir.
Oh, and he's got manners.
We were right to donate so much to the children's home. They took excellent care of you, didn't they, boy? You donated to the home? I say. If they did, they sure didn't give much.
A little. Enough to pay for your food, your room, Christian education. No luxuries. You couldn't grow up soft, Mick. You had to grow up lean and strong. You had to know suffering, so you could be compassionate. And the Lord God has given you a marvelous gift, a great helping of His grace, a heaping plateful of the power of God. And He had to make sure you were truly worthy to sit on the table at the banquet of the Lord. I almost looked around to see if there was a camera. He sounded so much like a preacher on TV. Mick, you've already passed the first test. You've forgiven your parents for leaving you to think you were an orphan. You've kept that holy commandment, honor thy father and mother, that thy day may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God has given thee. You know that if you raised a hand against them, the Lord would strike them down. For verily I say unto you, thou wast 2 rifles pointed at you the whole time. And if your father and mother had walked away without you, you would have flopped down dead in the Niagara Cemetery. For God, son, will not be mocked.
I couldn't tell if he was trying to provoke me or scare me or what. It was working.
The Lord has chosen you for His servant, Mick, just like He's chosen all of us. The rest of the world doesn't understand this, but Grandpa Jake saw it long ago, back in 1983. He saw how everybody he hated had a way of dying without him lifting a finger. And for a time he thought that maybe if he was like those old witches who curse people and wither up and die by the power of the devil. But he was a God-fearing man, and he had no truck with Satan. He was living in rough times, when men was likely to kill in a quarrel. But Grandpa Jake never killed, never even stuck out his fist. He was a peaceable man, and he kept his anger inside, which the Lord commands in the New Testament. So surely, he was not a servant of Satan. Papa Lim's voice rang through the little village. He was talking so loud that I noticed there was a bunch of people all around. Not many kids now, all grown up. Maybe they were here to hear Lim. But even more likely, they were here to see me. Because it was like that lady I met in Roanoke said, there wasn't one of them half as sparky as I am. I don't know if they could see all that, but I could. Compared to normal folks, it was just dusty. But compared to me, even to my ma'am and dad, they were a pretty dim little bunch. He studied the scriptures to find out what it meant when his enemies all suffered from tumors and bleeding and coughing and rot. And he came upon the verse of Genesis where the Lord said unto Abraham, I will bless thee, and curse him that curses thee. And he knew in his heart that the Lord had chosen him, the way he chose Abraham. When Isaac gave the blessing of God to Jacob, he said, let people serve thee, nations bow down to thee. Cursed by every one that curses thee, and blessed by he that blesseth thee. The promise to the patriarchs were fulfilled again in Grandpa Jake, for whoever cursed him was cursed by God. When he said those words from the Bible, Papa Lim sounded like that voice of God himself. I felt exalted, knowing it was God who gave me such power to my family. And it was the whole family, the way Papa Lim told it, because the Lord promised Abraham that his children would be as many as there were stars in the sky, which is a lot more than Abraham knew about seeing how he didn't have no telescope. And that promise now applied to Grandpa Jake, just like the one that said, in thee shall all families be earth be so blessed. So Grandpa Jake set to studying the books of Genesis so he could fulfill those promises just like the patriarchs did. He saw how they went to a lot of trouble to make sure they didn't marry kinfolk. You know how Abraham married his brothers, right? Sarah, Isaac married his cousin Rebecca. Jacob married his cousin Leah and Rachel. So Grandpa Jake left his first wife because she was unworthy. Meaning, she probably wasn't particularly sparky. There's all kinds of other stuff about Lot and his daughters. If we remain faithful, then we would be meek, inherit the earth. We're chosen people. The Lord would strike down everybody who stood in our way. But what it all came down to at the moment was this. You marry whoever the patriarch tells you to marry. And Papa Lim, he was the patriarch. He had my mama marry my daddy, even though they never particularly liked each other. Beware, because the children of Esau and Ishmael still covet the blessings of Jacob's son. They want to corrupt the pure seed of Grandpa Jake. They have enough of the blessings of God to know that you're a remarkable boy, like Joseph, who was sold into Egypt. And they will come to you with their whorish plans, the way Potiphar's wife came to Joseph, trying to persuade him to give them your pure and undefiled self, so they can have the blessings that their fathers rejected. I gotta tell you, I didn't much like having him talk about me in front of mixed company. That was nothing compared to what he did next. He waved his hand to a girl standing there in the crowd. Up she came. Papa Lim introduced us. It was his daughter, which I might have guessed. Then he says to her, "Will thou go with this man?" And she looks at me and she says, "I will go." And then she gave this big smile. And all of a sudden it was happening again. Just like it did with the lady in Roanoke, only twice as much. Because after all, the lady in Roanoke wasn't hardly sparky. Thing is, what
when I get mad, when I get all sparky, and the madder I get, the more I can see how she's doing it. Like a magnet drawing me to her. And as soon as I thought of it, us being magnets, I took all the sparkiness from being mad and I used it. Not to hurt her or nothing, because I didn't put her in that way. I don't do the things that people kill. I just kind of turned the path of her sparks plain upside down. She was spinning just as fast as ever, but it went the other way. And the second that started, why, it was like she disappeared. I mean, I could see her all right, but I couldn't hardly notice her. I couldn't focus my eyes on her. Papa Lim jumped right to his feet, and the other folks were gasping. Pretty quick, that girl stopped sparking at me, you can bet. There she was, on her knees, just throwing up. She must have had a real weak digestion or whatever. What I would have done could have been stronger. She was really pouring on the juice, I guess. And when I flung it back at her, turned her upside down, but she couldn't hardly walk. She was pretty hysterical too, crying about how awful and ugly I was. She might have hurt my feelings, except I was too scared to death. And Papa Lim was looking at me like the wrath of God. You have rejected the holy sacrament of marriage. You have spurned the handmaid God prepared for you. Now you've got to know that I hadn't put everything together yet, or I wouldn't have been so afraid of him. For all I knew, right then he could have killed me with cancer, like my sparkiness. And it was a sure thing he could have had all those people beat me to death or whatever if he wanted. So maybe I was right to be scared. Anyway, I had to think of a way to make him not be mad at me. What I came up with must have not been too bad, because it worked, didn't it? I say to him, as calm as I can, Papa Lim, she was not an acceptable handmaiden. I didn't watch all those TV preachers for nothing. I knew how to talk like that. She wasn't blessed enough to be my wife. You can't tell me that she's the best the Lord has prepared for me. And sure enough, he calmed right down. I know that. He isn't talking like a preacher anymore. It's me talking like the preacher. Him talking all meek. Well, you brought me here, didn't you? Oh, you were still alive, Nick. You've got to admit that it makes it easier. And I thought about how the lady in Roanoke told me she had me in her gun sights a few times. She let me live. Why? They killed those girls and let me live. I don't know why. I still don't. Knives mean to keep me locked up for this for the rest of my life. I might as well have blasted my head right off when I was 6. Then I can name you a dozen good folks who'd still be alive. So no thanks for the favor if you don't plan to let me go. Anyway, I say to him, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. That impressed the hell out of him, you can bet. He says, You truly have the prophetic spirit, Nick. I have no doubt that someday you'll be Papa in my place. And the Lord has gathered me, of course, to be up there with my fathers. I just smiled and told him how I'd remember that. There was plenty of time to talk about it tomorrow. It was dark now and I was tired, and a lot of things had happened to me today that I had to think over. I was really getting into the spirit of the Bible thing, so I say to him, Remember that before Jacob could dream of the ladder into heaven, he had to sleep. And everybody laughed. Papa Lim didn't. He wasn't satisfied yet. He was willing to let the marriage thing wait for a few days, but there was one thing that couldn't wait. He looked me in the eye and he says, Mick,
You've got a choice to make. The Lord says those who aren't for me are against me. And Joshua said to choose ye this day whom ye will serve. And Moses said, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore, choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. Well, I don't think you can put it much plainer than that. I could choose to live there among the chosen people, surrounded by kids, slimy old man telling me who to marry, whether I could raise my own children, or I could choose to leave, get my brains blasted out, or maybe pick up a stiff dose of cancer. I wasn't altogether sure whether he'd let me go quick or slow. Kind of figured they'd do it quick, though, so I'd have a chance to spill my place among the daughters of a sow. So, I gave him my most solemn and hypocritical promise that I would serve the Lord and live among them all the days of my life. Like I told you, I didn't know whether he could tell if I was lying or not, but he nodded and smiled, so it looked like he believed me. Trouble was, I knew he was lying, so that meant he didn't believe me. In fact, he was pretty angry, pretty scared too, even though he tried to hide it by smiling and keeping a lid on himself. But I knew that he knew that I had no intention of staying there with those crazy people. No. I better tell the truth here. I wasn't that smart. It wasn't until I was halfway to the house that I really wondered if he believed me. And it wasn't until Mama had me with a nice clean pair of pajamas up in a nice clean room. She was about to take my jeans and shirt, make them nice, clean it. It occurred to me, maybe I was going to wish I had more clothes on than pajamas that night. And as soon as Mama left and went on downstairs, I got dressed again, including my shoes, climbed in under the covers. I slept out in the open, so I didn't mind sleeping in my clothes. What drove me crazy was getting my shoes in the sheets. They would have yelled at me so bad at the children's home. I laid there in the dark, trying to think of what I was going to do. I pretty much knew how to get from this house out on the roads, but what good would that do me? I don't know where I was or where the road led or how far to go. You don't cut cross country in North Carolina. If you don't trip over something in the dark, you'll bump into something moonshine. Some operation that'll blast your head off. Not to mention the danger of your throat bit out by some tobacco farmer's mean old dog. So there I'd be, running along a road that leads somewhere with them on my tail. And if they wanted to run me down, I don't think fear of cancer would slow your average four-wheeler. I thought about maybe stealing a car. I don't have the first idea how to hotwire anything. It wasn't one of the skills you pick up in the children's home. I knew the idea of it somewhat, because I'd done some reading on electricity with the books. Miss Kaiser let me so I could maybe try something, get ready for the GED. There wasn't a chapter in there on how to get Lincoln running without a key. Didn't know how to drive either. All the stuff you pick up from your dad or your friends at school, I just never picked up at all. Maybe I dozed off, maybe I didn't. I suddenly noticed that I could see in the dark. Not see, of course, but feel the people moving around. Not far off at first, except like a blur. But I could feel the near ones, the ones in the house. It was because they were sparky, of course. But as I lay there feeling them, drifting here and around me in the rhythm of sleep, I began to realize I had been feeling people all along, only I didn't know it. They weren't sparky, I always knew where they were, like shadows drifting in the back of your mind. I didn't even know that I knew it, but they were there. It's like when Diz Riddle got him in the glasses when he was 10 years old, and all of a sudden he just went around whooping and yelling all the stuff he saw. He always used to see it before, but he didn't rightly know what half the stuff was, like
pictures of coins. He threw the coins. He knew they were bumpy. He didn't really know what they would look like. That's how it was. I laid there. I could make a map in my brain where I could see a whole bunch of different people. The more I tried, the better I could see. Pretty soon, it wasn't just in that house. I could feel them in other houses, dimmer and fainter. In my mind, I didn't see no walls, so I don't know whether somebody was in the kitchen or in the bathroom. I had to think it out, and it was hard. It took all my concentration. And the only guide I had was that I could see electrical wires, and the current was flowing through them, wherever a light was cut off. There was a clump of them in the next house. It's hard to sort them out because 3 of them were a lot brighter, so I thought they were closer. It took a while to realize it was probably Mom and Dad, Papa Lim, along with some others. Anyway, it was a meeting, and after it broke up after a while, all except Papa Lim came over. He seemed mostly scared. So was I. I calmed myself down, the way I've been practicing. I thought maybe they'd come up, get me. No, they all just waited downstairs while one of them came up. And he didn't come in and get me either. All he did was get to the other rooms and wake up whoever was sleeping there and get them downstairs out of the house. Well, that scared me worse than ever. Finally, all the people were out of the house except the ones downstairs. There's other outside houses, maybe watching, maybe not, but I figured I better not try to climb out the window. Then somebody started walking up the stairs again, alone. There wasn't nobody else to fetch down. They could only be coming after me. I was just one person, but that didn't do me any good. No grown man who knows how to use a knife is better off than me. I still have my full-grown strength on me. At least I sure hope I don't. The only fight I ever got in were slugging matches in the yard. For a moment I wished I took kung fu lessons instead of sitting around. The worst thing was, I couldn't see them. Maybe they just moved all the children out of the house so they wouldn't make noise in the morning and wake me. Maybe they're just being nice. This guy coming up the stairs might just be checking on me or bringing me clean clothes or something. I couldn't tell. So how could I twist him up? I didn't know if they were trying to kill me or what. If he was trying to kill me, I wish he twisted him before he ever came to the room with me. Well, that was one decision that God made for me. I lay there wondering what to do for so long that he got to the top of the stairs and came to my room, turned the knob and came in. He didn't go away. He walked soft too, so as not to wake me up. He seemed real scared. So scared that I finally knew there was no way to tuck me in, kiss me goodnight. So I tried to twist him, to send sparks at him. I didn't have any sparks to send. I mean, I wasn't mad or anything. I never tried to kill somebody on purpose before. It was always because I was already mad. I just lost control when it happened. Now I'd be calming myself down, so much that I couldn't lose control. I had no sparks at all to send. My normal shining shadow was right there. He was right there. I didn't have a second to lose, so I rolled over, toward him, which was maybe a dumb move. All I was thinking was I had to knock him out, push him or something. The only person I knocked down was me. I bumped him and hit the floor. He also cut me with the knife, not much of a cut. He mostly just snagged my shirt. But if it was scared before, it was definitely terrifying now. There was almost no light from the window. It was like being in a big closet. I couldn't see him. He couldn't see me, except of course that I could see him, or at least sense where he was. And now I was giving off sparks like crazy, so unless he was weaker than I thought, it would get to him too. Well, he was weaker than I thought. And he just kind of drifted. and I could hear him swishing the knife through the air in front of him. And he had no idea where I was. And all the time I was trying to get madder and madder. But it wasn't working. You can't get mad by trying. Maybe an actor can. I'm not an actor. So I was scared, sparking. But I couldn't get the pulse to mess with him. The more I thought about it, the calmer I got. It's like if you've been carrying around a machine gun all your life, accidentally blasting people you didn't really want to hurt. And then the first time you really want to lay into somebody, it jams. So I stopped trying to get mad. I just sat there realizing I was going to die. And after I finally got myself under control, I didn't kill people all the time anymore. Now that I didn't really want to commit suicide, now I was going to get wasted and killed. They didn't even have the guts to come at me openly, sneaking in the dark. And in the meeting where they decided to go, all along lost. But loving my mama and dad, they were right there. Heck, my dad was downstairs right now, waiting for the assassin to come down, tell him that I was dead. I was mad. Simple as that. Stop thinking about being mad and start thinking about things that if you think about them, they'll make you mad. And I was so sparky with fear that when I got mad too, it was worse than it had ever been before. Built up worse. Only when I let it fly. I didn't go for the guy up there swishing his knife back and forth in the dark. The pulse of fire in me went right down the floor, straight to dear old Dad. I could hear him scream. He felt it. Just like that. He felt it. So did I. But all of a sudden, I was blinded by light. For a second, I thought it was the other kind of light, sparks, them retaliating, twisting me. Then I realized it was my eyes being blinded. It was the overhead light in the room that was on. And the guy with the knife had finally realized that the only reason not to have the light on was so I wouldn't have to wake up. And now that I was awake, I might as well see what he's doing. Lucky for me, the light blinded him so much, just as it blinded me. Right, it poked him before I saw him hit me. Instead, I had time to scramble on back to the corner of the room. I'm not a hero. I was seriously thinking about running at him, attacking a guy with a knife. Would have been killed. I couldn't have done that. Lucky for me, the light blinded him, like I said. Then I thought of something else to do. I got the idea from the way I could feel the electric current in the wires running from the light switch through the walls. That was electricity. That lady in Roanoke called me sparkiness, bioelectricity. I gotta be able to do something with it, shouldn't I? I thought first that maybe I should short-circuit something, but I didn't think I had that much electricity in me. Thought maybe tapping into the house current to add to my own juice, but then I remembered that connecting up your body to house currents is the same thing other folks call electrocution. I mean, maybe I can tap into the house wiring. If I was wrong, I'd be real dead. I could still do something. There was a table lamp right next to me. I pulled the lamp and threw it at the guy, who was still standing by the door, thinking about what the scream downstairs meant. Then I grabbed the lamp and turned it on, and smashed the light bulb on the nightstand. Sparks. Then it went out. I held the lamp in my hand like a weapon, so he'd think I was going to beat off his knife with my lamp. And if my plan was a bust, I guess that would have done. While I was looking at me getting ready to fight my knife with the lamp, kind of let the jagged edge of the lamp rest on the bread spread. Then I used my sparkiness, the anger that was still in me. I couldn't fling it at the guy, or well, I could have, but it would have been like the bus driver 6 months earlier. By the time he died of that, I'd be 6 months worth of dead from multiple stab wounds from the neck and chest. So, I let my sparkiness build up, flow out of my arms, out along the lamp like I was making the shadow grow. And it worked. And the sparks just went right on down the lamp at the tip. Built up and built up. And all the time I was thinking about how Papa Lim was trying to kill me. And built up enough. Sparks started jutting across inside the broken light bulb, right there against the bedspread. Real sparks, the kind I could see, not just feel. And in 2 seconds that bedspread was on fire. Then I yanked the lamp to the cord, shot right out of the wall, and I threw it at the guy. While he was dodging, I scooped up the bedspread and ran at him. Wasn't sure whether I'd catch on fire or he would, but I figured he'd be too panicked and surprised to think of stabbing me. And sure enough, he didn't. He dropped the knife and tried to get off the bedspread, which he didn't do too good of a job of because I was still pushing at him. Then he tried to get through the door, but I kicked my ankle to his shoe. He just fell down, still fighting off the blanket. I got the knife and sliced right across the back of his thigh with it. It was sharp. Or maybe I was so mad and scared I cut him stronger than I ever thought I could. He was screaming from the fire and his leg was gushing blood and the fire was catching on the wallpaper, and it occurred to me that they couldn't chase me too good. They were trying to put out real dandy firehouses. And that's the truth. I wasn't burning. There was flames all around me, but it was kind of shied back from me. I thought about that a lot since then. I mean, even that sweetest scientist doesn't know all about this bioelectrical stuff. Maybe when I get real sparky, it makes it so other stuff can't hit me. Maybe that's how some generals in the Civil War used to ride around in the open. Or maybe that was the general in World War II, I can't remember. And bullets didn't hit him. Nothing hit them. Maybe if you're charged up enough, things just can't get to you. I don't know. I just know that by the time I finally decided to open the door and actually opened it, the whole room was burning. The door was burning, and I just opened it and walked through. Of course, now I got a bandage on my hand to prove that I couldn't grab a hot doorknob without turning a little myself. I shouldn't have been able to stay alive in that room. And I came out without even a hair singed. I started down the hall, not knowing who was still in the house. I wasn't used to being able to see people by their sparkiness yet, so I didn't think of checking. I ran down the stairs carrying the bloody knife, but it didn't matter. They all ran away before I got there. All except Daddy. But he was my daddy. And even a monster doesn't leave Daddy to go to the fire. So I grabbed his arms and tried to pull him out. I forgot how sparky I was, worse than ever. The second I touched him, the sparkiness just gushed out of me all over him. It never went that way before. Just completely surrounded him, like he was a part of me. Like he was completely drowning in my light. It wasn't what I meant to do. I just forgot. I was trying to save him, and instead I gave him a hit that I never gave nobody before. I couldn't stand it. I screamed, and I dragged him out. He was all limp. But even if I killed him, even if I turned him to jelly inside, he wasn't going to burn. That's all I could think of. That and how I ought to walk back into that house myself, up the stairs and catch myself on fire and die. But I didn't do it, as you might guess. There were people yelling fire, shouting stay back. I knew that I was better to get out of there. Dad's bod was lying on the grass in front of the house, and I took off around the back. Thought maybe I heard some gunshots, but it couldn't have been popping and cracking from timbers in the fire, I don't know. I just ran around the house along towards the road. There was people in my way that just got out of the way because even the most dim-witted, puke-brained kid in the whole village would have seen my sparks. I was hot. And I ran till the asphalt ended. I was running on the dirt road. There was clouds on the moon. There was hardly any light at all. And I was stumbling off the road into the weeds. I fell once when I was getting up. I could see the fire behind me. The whole house was burning. There was flames above the trees. Come to think of it, there hadn't been much rain. Dry trees. A lot more than one house was going to burn tonight, I figured. For a second, I even thought maybe nobody would chase me. But that was about as stupid as the idea I ever had. I mean, they wanted to kill me before, because I said Papa Limp's girl wasn't for me. How do you think they felt about me now that I burned down their little hidden town? And once they realized I was gone, they'd be after me, and I'd be lucky if they shot me. I even thought about cutting off the road. Dangerous or not, hiding in the woods. But I decided to get as much distance as I could along the road till I saw some headlights. Just when I decided that, the road ended. Just bushes and trees. I went back, tried to find the road. Must have turned, but I didn't know which way. I was tripping along with a blind man in the grass, trying to feel my way to the roots of the dirt road. Of course, that's when I saw the headlights heading way off toward the burning house. There's at least 3,000 houses burning now. They knew the town was a total loss by now. Probably just leaving enough folks to get all the children out away to a safe place, while the men came after me. It's what I would have done. To hell with cancer, they knew I couldn't stop them all before they did what they wanted me. Here, couldn't even find the road to get away from them. By the time their headlights got close enough to show the road, it'd be too late to get away. I was about to run back into the woods, and all of a sudden, a pair of headlights, 20 feet away, pointed right at me. Then I heard her calling to me. "Get on over here, Mick! You idiot! Don't just stand there in the light. Get on over here." It was a lady. The lady from Roanoke. I still couldn't see her because of the lights, but I knew her voice. I took off. The road didn't end, it just turned a little. She was parked right where the dirt road met up sideways with the gravel road. I got around to the door of the car she was driving, or truck, or whatever it was. 4-wheel drive Blazer, maybe. I know it had 4-wheel drive shift lever in it. Anyway, the door was locked. She was yelling at me to get in, and I was yelling back that it was locked until finally she unlocked it and I climbed in. She backed up so fast and swung around under the gravel in a spin, nearly threw me right to the door. So I hadn't closed it yet, but then she took off so fast, going forward, spinning gravel behind her, and then the door closed itself. "Fasten your seatbelt." "Did you follow me here?" "No." "Fasten your seatbelt, okay?" I did. Then I turned around in my seat and looked out the back. There was 5 or 6 sets of headlights, making the job to get away from the dirt road onto the gravel road. We didn't have more than a mile on them. We've been looking for this place for years. We thought it was in Rockingham County. That's how far off we were. Well, where is it then? It's Alamancy County. Well, I don't care what county it is. I killed my own dad back there. Okay, don't get mad. Don't get mad at me now. I'm sorry, just calm down. I guess that was all she could think of. How I might get mad, lose control, kill her. I don't blame her. So it was the hardest thing I ever did. Keeping myself from busting out right there in the car. And it would have killed her too. Pain in my hand was starting to get to me. I grabbed for the doorknob. It was building up, building up. She was driving, a lot faster than the headlights reached. You'd be going way too fast for a curb before she even saw it. Then she'd slam on the brakes and we'd skid, and sometimes I couldn't believe we didn't just roll over and crash. But she always got out of it. I couldn't face back anymore. I just sat there with my eyes closed, trying to get calm. Then I remember my daddy, who I didn't even like, but he was my daddy. Now he's lying there. Then I realized that the guys following us were close enough that I could feel them. It wasn't that they were close. They were just so mad that I could feel their sparks flying like never before. Well, as long as I could see them, feel them, whatever, I could let fly, couldn't I? I just flung out toward them. I don't know if I hit them. I don't know if my bioelectricity is something I can throw like that or what. But at least I shucked it off myself. I didn't mess up the lady who was driving. And when we hit asphalt again, I found out that I didn't know what crazy driving was before. She peeled out. Now she began to look at the curve ahead and then switched off the headlights until she was halfway through the curve. It was the craziest thing I ever saw. It also made sense. They had to be following our lights. When our lights went out, they wouldn't know where you were for a minute. You also wouldn't know if the road's curved ahead. They might just crash or slow down at least. Of course, we had a real good chance of ending up eating trees ourselves, but she drove like she knew what she was doing. We went straight to the section with the crossroads, about a mile up. She switched off the lights again. I thought maybe she was going to turn, but she didn't. This went on and on, straight into the pitch black. And now that straight section was gone. But it didn't go on forever. I don't care how good a driver you are, you can't keep track of how far you've gone in the dark. Just when I thought for sure it would smash into something, she let off the gas and reached her hand out of the window with the flashlight. We were still going pretty fast, but the flashlight was enough to make a reflector up against the flash back at us. So she knew where the curve was, and it was farther off than I thought. She whipped us around the curve and then around another, just using a couple blinks from the flashlight before she switched on the headlights again. I looked behind to see if they could see anybody, or if I could. "I think you've lost them." "Maybe, you tell me." So I tried to feel where they might be. Sure enough, they were sparky enough I could just barely tell where they were. They were way back, split up, smeared out. "They're going every which way." "We've lost a few of them." "They aren't going to give up. You know that, right?" "I know." "Ignorant. That's what they are." Well, my grandpa didn't want to just keep reading the Bible and killing any revenuers or sheriffs or whatever who gave us trouble. He wanted to find out who we are. He also wanted to marry, pick everyone out for us. He wasn't particularly dusty, so he left. They hunted him down and tried to kill him, and he got away. He married. And he also studied and became a doctor. And his kids grew up knowing they had to find out what it is. This power. It's like the old stories of witches. Women who get mad and suddenly your cows start dying. Maybe they didn't even know they were doing it. Summonings and love spells, come-hithers. Everybody can do a little. Just like everybody can throw a ball and sometimes make a basket. But some people can do it better than others. And those people back there, Papa Lim, they do it best of all. Better and better. Because they're breeding for it. And we've got to stop them, don't you see? We've got to keep them from learning how to control it. Because now we know more about it. It's all tied up in the way the human body heals itself. Do you know what that means? If they could control it, Lim's people could be healers. Maybe it takes a little love, not anger. She just drives. She doesn't say anything after. She just drives. Damn, it's raining. The road was slick in 2 seconds. She slowed way down. It came down harder and harder. I looked behind us and there were headlights back there again, way back. I could still see them. And they're on us again. That's about when they started shooting at us. Rain or no, they were pushing it. They got close enough to shoot. They weren't half as bad at it. Just then, we whipped around the corner and our headlights lit up a bunch of guys getting out of the car with their guns in their hands. She says, finally. So I figured there was some people of hers, there to take the heat off, right? But at the same second, Lim's people must have shot out a tire, or maybe she just got a little careless for a second. Because after all, she couldn't be too good through the windshield. But anyway, she lost control and skidded, flipped over, rolled over. It felt like 5 times, all in slow motion, rolling and rolling. The doors popping open, breaking off, the windshield cracking and crumbling away. And there we hung in our seatbelts, not talking, nothing. So maybe to say, oh my God, or something. I heard water rushing, a stream, I thought. We can wash up. Only it wasn't a stream. It was the gasoline pouring out of the tank. Then I heard gunshots from back up the road. Didn't know who was fighting who. But if the wrong guy won, they just loved to catch us in a nice hot gasoline fire. And getting out wasn't going to be all that hard. The doors were gone. So we didn't have to climb out a window or anything. We just leaned over on the left side, so her door was mashed against the ground. I say to her, "We've got to climb out the door." I had enough brains left. Enough to hook one arm over the lip of the car before I unbuckled my seatbelt. And I holstered myself out. Stayed perched up there on the side of the car, up in the air, so I could reach down and help her out. Only she wasn't climbing out. I yelled at her and she didn't answer. Thought for a second she was dead. Then I saw that her sparks were still there. Funny how I never saw that she had any sparkiness before, because I didn't know how to look for it. But now, even though it was dim, I could see it. Only it wasn't so dim. It was busy. Like she was trying to heal herself. The gurgling was still going on. Everything smelled like gasoline. Felt like I sat there for a whole minute before I realized I didn't have to pull her out of the car. I could pull her out with the front, because the whole windshield was missing, and the roof was only mashed down. It was a real smart pulling the roll bar in. I jumped off the car. It wasn't raining right here, but it had rained. It was slippery and wet. And anyway, all I cared about then was her. Not breathing, lying limp on the grass. I was holding on to her, crying, angry, scared. I had us both covered with sparks, like we were the same person, just completely covered. I was crying and saying, "Live, live." I couldn't even call her by name. Nothing. Because I didn't know her name. I just know that I was shaking like I had chills. So was she, and she was breathing now. Whimpering like somebody just stepped on a puppy. And the sparks just kept flowing. Around us both. And I felt like somebody sucked everything out of me. Like I was a wet towel. Somebody just wrung me out. Flipped me into a corner. And everything else, I don't remember. I guess until I woke up here.